Sniffer, pitcher, and Torchflower fans, I got great news for you. Are you looking to get your hands on a little bit more of Minecraft's newest and most beautiful flowers? Have you found yourself searching for an all-in-one snifflet daycare facility? Then most importantly, would you like to collect all of those brand new sniffer seeds, fully automatically? How you doing, everybody? It's me, Waddles. And today I'm going to show you how to build this fully automatic, easy sniffer plant farm for Minecraft, Java, and Bedrock. Smash like for more tutorials, and let's do this. We'll kick things off today with materials. If you're planning on building this farm, which is technically resizable, at the absolute minimum, you will need these supplies right here. In exact amounts, you'll need these rails and item collection supplies. You'll need blocks that are diggable. When it comes to diggable blocks, popped up on screen right now are all of the options that you have. Now for this build, you'll need some blocks to actually lay your rails on, and you'll need some blocks for the walls. When it comes to laying the rails and building the walls, you could use anything in the world. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on moss blocks, get some of those, and of course, get some sniffers as well. The more the merrier. With materials done and dusted, next up, let's talk a little bit about finding sniffers. This could be tricky. Of course, to actually set this farm up and make it work, you're gonna need to get your hands on some sniffers. I recommend finding a warm ocean or a lukewarm ocean. When attempting to locate one of those two biomes, it might be a good idea to bring some extra supplies with you. 100%, you're gonna need a brush, maybe a shovel too. It's also not a bad idea to bring a night vision potion. You drink one of these things, and look at this, you can see clean through the water. This is gonna help you find an ocean ruin a whole lot easier. After exploring your ocean for a little while, hopefully you'll come across a warm ocean ruin. We're specifically looking for the ocean ruin variant that has sand all around it and is typically built out of sandstone. Inside of this thing, we're gonna find the brand new sus blocks. Now it's time to brush these blocks away. And get lucky. This is painful. So, unfortunately, to kick all of this off today, inside of this excavation site, you will need to find a sniffer egg. And tragically, sniffer egg generation chance 6.7. That's it. I hate to say it, but from all of my testing that I've done, you're probably going to have to check multiple ocean ruins to find one sniffer egg, let alone two. So, good luck. But on the bright side, as soon as you find at least one sniffer egg, you're technically good to go. Two things that might help you when working under the water here is a potion of water breathing, or even better, water armor, including respiration 3 on that helmet. With enough determination and patience, eventually you'll get your hands on a sniffer egg. Take that thing back to land, place it down, and it'll hatch. Even better though, if you're able to get your hands on a moss block and you place the sniffer egg on top of that, it'll actually hatch twice as fast. On average, it'll take about 10 minutes for this thing to hatch, but you don't hatch it quite yet. If you've been paying attention to a lot of the newer mobs that Minecraft has added, like the axolotl or even the other 1.20 mob, the camel, then you know that a lot of these newer mobs are pretty complex. The same exact thing goes for the sniffer. So you find the egg, you go ahead and give it enough time, and eventually the egg will hatch. You'll have a baby snifflet. This baby snifflet will take about 40 minutes to grow up. In total, that's about 2 in-game days, day and night included. Once the baby sniffer or snifflet grows up, however, it'll be able to begin searching for seeds. For a sniffer to be able to search for seeds, it needs at least a 6x6 block area of free space to look around. It also needs, of course, one of the diggable blocks that it can actually look inside of. When your sniffer is looking around for seeds, it'll walk around and do this whole sniffing animation. Absolute chef's kiss of an animation. Give this big guy enough time and eventually it'll sploot onto the ground. This is the technical name for it. It'll dig around and eventually throw a seed up onto the ground. After that, an 8-minute cooldown timer immediately kicks off. The sniffer will celebrate and it will unfortunately not be able to find another seed or pod for 8 minutes. To make our ancient dinosaur friend even more complex, it has a memory of 20 blocks. When the sniffer dug into the block that was like, it's somewhere over there, well, it remembers that it already looked there. Any given sniffer will remember the 20 most recent blocks that it has dug in. After that, when it digs into the 21st one, it'll forget that very first block that it dug in, and it can dig there again. It's actually, to be honest, a relatively advanced mechanic, but fortunately, this whole block memory thing, it's on a per sniffer basis, which means this one, it remembers its own blocks, and this one, it also remembers its own blocks. They could technically dig inside of the same block, one after another, and find seeds. So with those mechanics in mind, let's take a look at this farm and actually build it. Over in our tutorial world here, first things first, we're going to want to find a spot to actually build this farm. Great news, you can build this thing in any biome, doesn't matter, will not make a difference. Start by placing a double chest in the ground. Behind that double chest, place a hopper going into it and another hopper going into it. If you wanted to, you could string more hoppers, but it's definitely not necessary. After that, we're going to go ahead and build 4 blocks out in either direction from the hopper. Right now, we're prepping our platform for our item collection system. Great news, if you're building this in any world that isn't a void, you might not have to do this. With this step, all we're looking to do here is set up some kind of 10 by 10 block area that'll sit underneath our farm so we can run rails on it. So just a tiny bit of building later, and we end up with something that looks like this. In this 10 by 10 block area, you could run your item collection rail line however you'd like. I like to do it by starting with a line of plain old and non-powered rails in the front. I move over to one of the sides, place a couple more, then directly in the middle, or about, I'll place 3 powered rails. After that, I finish the line, run it all the way to the back. We'll do a U-turn and run back towards the front, and then we'll continue snaking it. You can get away with 3 powered rails right there, then none here, and then 3 more right there. If you set your rail line up just like I'm setting it up right here, in total, you'll need 12 powered rails. Now, with this farm, great news. If you want to, and if you have the time, you could technically build this farm way bigger. If your plan is to put hundreds and hundreds of sniffers inside of your farm, instead of, like cramming them all into one space, maybe give them a little bit more room to breathe. But of course, as you expand your farm, it'll take more materials. Just keep that in mind. With our rail line set up and covering every single block that will be underneath our farm, we could drop a hopper minecart down and then power our powered rails with levers or something. Place a couple levers down underneath the farm, turn them on, and there we go. And push the minecart to get it started, and if you set everything up right, it should run forever. With item collection checked, done, and figured out, it's time for our diggable blocks. Now, when it comes to the specifics here, it does not matter at all. Use any of the diggable blocks from this list right here that you have. If you have coarse ore, great. If you have mud, really cool. The block that you actually use here will make no difference at all how often and what kind of seeds that the sniffer actually digs up. So go ahead and fill that whole platform in, and then, if you have moss, consider going back and putting some moss in the platform somewhere. Moss is technically a diggable block, so you could totally do a whole platform out of these things if you wanted. But if you don't have any, don't worry. It is technically totally optional. The only reason I'm throwing moss in this design right here is to actually speed up the hatching of the sniffer eggs. Snifflets take a long time to grow up as is. If you could bump that egg hatch time down from 20 minutes to 10, I mean, why not? With your whole platform built and set up, I highly recommend dropping down the sniffer egg or 2 or 3 or 4, however many sniffer eggs you found, drop them down on the platform right now and let them start hatching. Now quickly, before they hatch, go around the rest of the platform and build walls. The walls that you set up on this platform can be built out of anything that you want in the world, but they do need to be at least 2 blocks tall. If you want, make them taller, but do not make them shorter. If you make the walls shorter or out of non-solid blocks like slabs, you might end up getting seeds and pods thrown outside of the farm, and that's not good. When it comes to a ceiling on this farm, totally optional. And if you wanted to, you could cover this farm in all the way. In fact, covering your farm up all the way, it might technically be a little bit safer. There aren't any mobs in the game that naturally hate the sniffer, but remember the lightning. Lightning theoretically could strike your sniffer and that'd be bad. With walls and an optional roof built on this thing, it's a waiting game. All you gotta do is wait for your sniffer eggs to hatch, and then the baby snifflets to actually grow up.
1 hour later.
Give it a little bit of time, they'll hatch and eventually grow up. Then once they grow up, all you gotta do is let this thing be loaded in. Maybe build this near your base, do something else or whatever, and the sniffers will walk around, sploot down, and dig around. Eventually they'll find something, the hopper minecart running under this thing will scoop that thing right up and throw it inside of the chest for you. Because of that unfortunate 8-minute cooldown timer, with just 2 sniffer inside of it, or even 1, it will run very slow. If possible, to speed this thing up, I highly recommend going out in your world and finding more sniffers. Once you find 2 sniffer eggs, you can let them hatch, and then you can continue to breed them from there with torchflower seeds that you'll get from the farm. But remember, the more sniffers you get inside of this thing, the more crowded it will become, and the more crowded it is, the harder it is for the sniffer to move around. But that's it, friends. Set it up in your world, let it run for a little while, come back, and torchflower seeds, pitcher pods, and who knows? Maybe they add more stuff to the sniffer? It'll work for that too. That's it for today's tutorial. For more cool farms, check out the tutorial playlist. It's on the end card. If you build this in your world and it helped you out, let me know by dropping a like and tell me all about it down below. This has been me, Waddle, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.